reached a point in the housing study where the community input is essential. As we reach this point in really months of work, really years of work, having the contributions and the values being shaped by our community makes this process that much stronger, and of course will help us to be able to achieve the goals that have been set by the county board. Today is the first step in that process, where we're able to set this unique gathering and this format up so that persons would be able to contribute. And so we've got to be able to move forward with each of these planned as well as those that will be planned events in order that the community will come out and make contributions.
And what excites you about this project?
Some might say, why shouldn't we spend any time talking about affordable housing? Won't the market just take care of what's needed? And I have to tell you, I've lived in this community now for 37 years, and the market doesn't take care of all parts of the affordability spectrum. We believe that housing that's affordable to folks at multiple layers of affordability or tiers of affordability is essential to us fulfilling our vision of being a diverse and inclusive world-class urban community. Our goal here is to establish an affordable housing policy that will provide direction for our actions for many years to come. I should point out that the state requirements for comprehensive planning do require that every locality have an affordable housing component in their comprehensive plan. So we're asked by the state to insert this in the work that we do. Now, the group that's been working has done a terrific job of quantifying the critical gaps in housing affordability that we face, also in identifying the issues that surround affordable housing in our community, and drafting both a vision for the future of affordable housing in Arlington and a framework for implementing that vision. On Monday of this week, the board spent several hours reviewing the work that the group had done, looking at the draft affordable housing goals, objectives, policies, and tools that could meet our community's shifting needs. We met with the working group and with the manager. After that review, the board said, you know what, this is ready to go out and have the broader community conversation. And as I said, that's why I'm here today. We again need to have help as we focus in on the main ideas that are presented in the plan, as well as several areas that the board has highlighted and that we particularly want to make sure we get community input on. I'm going to run through several of these, and Russell will reiterate that. So first of all, does the plan provide a sufficient target for the supply of affordable housing? In the old housing goals and targets, our goal was to create 400 units a year. Some years we met that, some years we didn't. That was a numerical. It didn't look at what the mix of housing should be overall in our community of affordability. And so this plan steps not away from the numerical, but towards something that we can use to measure our progress over time for the whole community and suggests a percentage. Open to debate, open to how we got there, but it's a shift in our focus of what we're trying to measure. We're looking for thoughts regarding the plan's approach to geographic distribution. And again, let me just say, in the old plan, we kind of divided the county up into some quadrants and said this many per year here, this many per year there. In this plan, we take a different approach, which says we start from a base of what we have now. Then we look to our multimodal corridors for new places. And finally, we ask the question of whether or not there are tools which could work in our single-family neighborhoods that would allow folks to age in place or add a young couple, in a basement apartment, not changing the character of the neighborhood, but finding ways to add some affordability in places where right now our zoning would not allow it. We're asking asking you to think about whether we should explicitly build in preferences for Arlington residents and workers in our affordable housing programs. We do in some now require that you already have a lease in hand, but for our biggest tool, which is committed affordable housing, we don't have a you have to live here or work here requirement. Is that something we should explore? What should the county's role be in meeting the demands of middle-income folks who would like to own a home? And finally, as I said, we do have an existing accessory dwelling ordinance. Are there ways we can tweak that or use that to make single-family neighborhoods a little bit more dense, respecting the character and respecting the fact that we're looking for more places for people who have smaller units to actually live. So that's just a few of the key issues that the board pulled up that are really newer ideas that we would like the community to talk about, chew on. And I know that there are other things in the plan which will be of interest to folks and definitely risk for all of our mill as we continue to work our way through this. I want to say to you that I really do believe that housing affordability is a key component of a sustainable community. That we are more resilient as a community in tough times, and we are more able to attract businesses that want a range of workers when we are able to provide in our community a variety of housing types at a variety of price points. I think it makes us strong. And as we go forward in this very, very competitive region that we live in, not attending to housing affordability sets us up, I think, to ultimately be in a worse position to compete in our region. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Hamlin, I think, who's been chairing our working group, and we'll do a little bit more stuff. And again, let me say thank you so much for coming today. Thank you for bringing your best selves with you so that you can give us your best thinking. This is the first of many forums on this topic between now and then it's likely to come back to the board in June. So again, thanks very much.
So the structure of the working group itself was set up to leverage the efforts of the existing working group members. Each of us represents a specific part of the Arlington community. Arlington has a number of committees and commissions that address a range of issues. I personally sit on the Community Development Citizens Advisory Committee. So I'm representing that committee in the interests of people that are concerned about community development. But we have a number of other people on the working group that serve on various committees related to development. We have the Housing Commission represented. We have tenants and landlord related issues represented. We have representatives from the disability community, the aging community, and I know I'm not, in the interest of time, I won't list all of them, but we are set up to leverage our existing activities already. And then we tried to reach the people that aren't directly represented on the working group through a number of forums. We had, just like today, we have this working group listening session. We've had several of those on weekends throughout the year, along the last 3 years of this process. We've had a number of forums both in the evenings and on weekends. We've also had surveys that we put out. So I think we've done a good job of reaching out to various stakeholders, but I think we'd always hope to get as much input as possible, and we could always improve. So that's what the next 3 months are about. As we continue to seek input, we'll be going out, we'll be talking to other community groups, and we're hoping that people will check out the Housing Study website and be able to access the materials that we have and submit their feedback online as well, if that suits them.
What excites me is the community contribution. We've spent a lot of indoor time, as we might say it, working over data, looking at why we've arrived at the point where we are right now. In order to go forward into the future, we need community input, and we need to shape our values. And really what helps us to really carry out this work in the way that we really need to carry it out is to make certain that we're not just saying what our values are, but we're putting in place so that we have actions.
Thank you, Lisa. Good morning. So I'm going to walk you through two things. We've got policy and we've got how we're going to implement policy. What are the means? What are the tools? So really based on the needs and based on the values that we talked about earlier, we began to formulate policy looking at what the county's previous policy was. And we're articulating the future policy in three goals. First, that we have an adequate supply of housing to meet our community's needs. Second, that we can enable access to that housing for all segments of the community. And lastly, that our affordable housing efforts contribute to the community's sustainability. So on the supply side, we're looking at two components of that, the rental supply, the ownership supply. And so for rental households, we're putting forward a target that 17.7% of the county's housing stock should be affordable to households at or below 60% of area median income by 2040. This would mean that we're going to have 17.7% of our households are projected to be renter households. Under that income, we should have the same amount of housing to be able to house them. So it aligns the two. On the ownership side, we're looking at the middle income, between 80 and 120% of the area median income, and we expect a growth and a need of about 2,700 units, which would translate to about 28% of the anticipated new units to be put online between now and 2040. And again, both of these goals are really aimed at being able to maintain and preserve our current economic diversity in the community. Housing supply alone doesn't solve all of our housing needs. We need to ensure that there's mechanisms to access that housing. So we need to be vigilant and continue to enforce fair housing laws, ensure that housing discrimination does not occur in Arlington, that we provide access for lower income, and we're talking extremely low income households, through rental assistance programs, which enable them to get into the affordable housing. And that we're vigilant and continue to pursue in our efforts to prevent and end homelessness, and that our aging community has opportunities both to age in place and to age in the community, that there's options for downsizing, and that independent living opportunities are available, including ensuring that there's an adequate number of units that have accessibility features. And lastly, sustainability. So we need to be sustainable in our efforts, and that means that we need to ensure the physical integrity of our housing stock, that it's not crumbling, it's not decaying, that it's going to be around for a long time. Putting our housing close to transit is a wise investment and helps both households with affordability and helps us from a standpoint of just being able to move people to their jobs more efficiently. And affordable housing promoting energy and water efficiency not only helps the county achieve their goals on these areas, but also helps households in reducing their overall housing costs when they have lower utility bills. And then lastly, that affordable housing, it supports the other areas of the county's planning, the general land use plan. And the general land use plan, there's kind of a symbiotic that we support each other, both in land use planning, transportation planning, energy planning, that these all need to work together. And so housing, as housing attempts to achieve transportation and energy goals, the converse is true. It's a two-way street. So based on those goals, we have an implementation framework which lays out the county's tools for achieving those goals, how we'll achieve those goals. And there's many, many tools, and I'm not going to get into all of them, but going to highlight, sorry about that. I think the font issue between computers. But basically, we have three areas of tools, which is our financing tools, which help us get affordable housing built or preserved, land use tools, which also enable the affordable housing to be built in the community, and services, which really get at the needs of special populations. And I'm going to highlight really only the kind of top level tools in each of these areas. The county has an affordable housing investment fund that was established in 1988, and this fund serves as a revolving loan fund. Developers, typically nonprofit developers, receive a portion of the financing through this fund, and it's really meant to bridge the gap between what the development is able to secure in lending and investment from private and other sources, and what the actual project cost is. And the result of that means when the county makes loans to developers and they're repaid, that really we're only providing a fraction of the cost for that development. Typically we're leveraging $3 for every $1 we put in. So that's bringing other dollars, other investments into the community as our partners invest in housing, often rehabilitating and renovating older aging housing. This is an interesting look at AHIP. So AHIP has a number of funding sources, and as a revolving loan fund, it's been very successful. If you look at the biggest wedge in this breakout of where an AHIP dollar comes from, past loan repayments that make up close to half. And this is over a 5-year period. It can vary year to year because of various events. So we set to look at 5 years to see how this looks on average. The second source is our general fund or local tax revenues. About a quarter of the money over the last 5 years has come from that. And developer contributions, which come from our land use ordinances that we'll talk about in just a second, that account for about 15% of the funds that we have in AHIP over the last 5 years. Our main land use tool is the Affordable Housing Ordinance, and this really when developers are putting forth projects under the site plan process, which basically means that they're asking more than the zoning currently allows, but underneath what the general land use plan allows. The ordinance establishes provisions for affordable housing, such that the developer can build affordable housing on site according to the formula. They can build it off site, or they can provide a cash contribution to the Affordable Housing Investment Fund. By and large, the developer community has favored giving cash contributions to the Affordable Housing Investment Fund. And so we looked at this and looked at what the counties, how this is from the county's viewpoint. Clearly, the developers have decided that it works better for them to give a cash contribution. But how does it work from the county side? When we give money into AHIP, what is contributed for one unit, we're able to invest that in our affordable housing units, our committed affordable housing. And because we're leveraging that, the costs are less than what we're getting for that one unit on site. And the affordability is much longer. When they're done through the ordinance and on site, we would have that unit for only 30 years. When we provide a loan through AHIP, it's affordable for 60 years, for twice the affordability. So the net effect is that we really get 3.2 times the affordability when we get the cash contribution. So the county is well served by the program. Services, I just want to highlight our two rental assistance programs here. The Housing Grant Program, which is locally funded, and the Housing Choice Voucher Program, which is federally funded. Both of these programs provide direct assistance to very low, extremely low income households. Primarily, it's about a third each, a third elderly folks who are on fixed incomes, and households with disabilities, and then working families. And then of these, what we found is about 80% of families or households receiving rental assistance actually live in committed affordable housing. And if you remember that drop off on that chart, there's very little market affordable that's left. But both these programs have limits on what rents they can subsidize. The sky is not the limit. And so as there's less and less market affordable, more voucher holders and housing grant recipients are in our committed affordable housing. And so on the reverse side of that, it means that about 30% of our committed affordable units are occupied by persons who are receiving
additional assistance from the county to make their housing more affordable than the affordability that's provided through the requirements on it. The framework lays out a number of potential tools. We'll talk about some of these in our breakout groups, and I encourage you to read that. But we run financing, land use, and services, a whole host of tools and work.
In general, there was a lot of discussion about concentration, how it was not favored primarily because of the schools issue, and also to really look at North Arlington in terms of affordable housing, and to look at the highway, and also to think of more creative uses of buildings that are already there, so vacant office buildings, etc. The next question was about preferences, and should Arlington County residents receive a preference for committed affordable housing?
So we had a very robust discussion around the first question on supply. We actually went through them all and actually came back to them. I think there was a lot of people that were divided on whether this is a valid policy and whether or not that we should be enabling people that can't afford here to live here. There's other people that thought that there's a lot of retail workers, people in the schools and hospitality industry that are working here that should be allowed to live here. We need to increase the support of those people, as well as increasing our economic and racial diversity and maintaining the spirit of our values, our community, our county values. Question 2 on geographic distribution. There was thoughts there that we should be working to prevent displacement of current residents, looking at some of the smaller apartment buildings, especially preserving those along Westover, along the highway.
The majority of people in the room thought that the goal probably should be higher, and there were a lot of reasons for that. And kind of at the end, we took a show of hands, and 8 thought that it should be higher. 1 thought it should be lower, and 2 thought it was about right, so that gives you an idea. On the distribution, geographic distribution question, we felt that wasn't really a yes or no answer. It was the discussion was much more nuanced than that, and that we need to be looking at the transportation corridors and getting more information about whether how people really do use transit, and whether people need cars, and
So earlier I noticed you were talking about the connection between housing and transportation. Just explain that to me a little bit.
Sure. So when you're thinking about housing affordability, you actually should be looking not just at the cost of housing itself, but the full cost of living in a specific location. And obviously your rent or mortgage payment is a primary and important aspect of that, but you also have to look at how you get to the other places that you need to be to meet life's necessities. So your job, your schools if you have children, places where you go to stores to get groceries, how close you are to health facilities, the doctor's office, etc. So, we call it sort of the full cost of place. And generally, we think about that as a proxy, and that our combined housing and transportation costs as being critically important. So you had the phenomenon, especially in the mid-2000s before the housing crisis, where people would drive till they qualified. Where they would try and get a mortgage and they couldn't afford it close to their job, so they would try and live further and further and further out. And then what they steadily realize is that gradually increases your cost of transportation, and the net gain of your savings in housing costs, and much of that is then lost. If you're thinking about it from the Arlington perspective, and you say you have a 4-person household with kids and 2 working parents, if you're living within a transit corridor, you may be able to get away with having 1 or even no cars. One person might have to drive to work, the other can use transit, and then you have a car to drive your kids to school or to school functions or the library, etc. But if you're priced out of that transit corridor, then you move out further where there's no access to bus service or poor bus service, then you may have to take on another car, or just even if you don't have to buy another vehicle, you might have increased gas costs, increased maintenance costs. If your car breaks down and you don't have money to fix it right away, it could have impacts on your employment. So it's important to think about the geographic location of housing and whether it's efficient for people to meet their daily necessities. We in the housing affordability field, we talk about 30% of area median, or 30% of your monthly income as a standard for being affordable for housing. But there's some new research, or I shouldn't say it's not new anymore, it's been out there for a little while, but there's some data resources out there where you can look at maps and see how truly affordable a place is by looking at the combined cost of housing and transit. Housing and transportation, rather. One resource is out there through the Housing and Transportation Affordability Index with the Center for Neighborhood Technology. HUD and EPA and the Department of Transportation also have created a location affordability portal. So this data is out there where we can look at the trade-offs between where we're locating affordable housing and where the resources that people need are located to make sure that they have opportunity to succeed and thrive in life. So I'm a housing researcher in my day job. So this has been an opportunity for me to take some of the lessons that I've learned on the national level and really get down and apply them in a local context. So it's been really exciting to take a look at do a comprehensive look at what Arlington's been doing, how effective those programs have been, and where are there areas for significant improvement, and be able to use the data that we've received from the consulting group with the Center for Housing Policy and George Mason and really see what the challenges are moving forward, and then in many ways start from a blank slate, looking at what's being done elsewhere, what's being done here, and trying to figure out how we can really get down into the details to solve the housing affordability challenges we have in this community. So as sort of a policy wonk or a policy nerd, this has been really exciting for me because it is really been great to get the engagement from the community and the county's leadership to really take a detailed, nuanced look and an honest look at our policies to figure out what we can be doing better and how we can meet these huge challenges that we have moving forward.
Well, we're hoping for around the July period. I know that some of that is subject to the calendar of the county board, but we're hoping for around the month of July in order that it can be adopted, become part of the comprehensive plan, and this will be reflective of course, Arlington's vision as well as the values of the community.
So we're going to take these draft documents out into the community. We're going to be going to meetings. We're going to be getting feedback from our website. We're going to be, people can send us questions, and we're going to be going out again and talking to folks. And so sometimes it'll be in meetings, small meetings, large meetings. We'll be going out south Arlington, north Arlington, east, west, all sorts of constituencies, folks for affordable housing, folks that have some questions about affordable housing. But our job is to get the word out, get feedback from folks, and so
If you haven't weighed in on the affordable housing study, there's lots of opportunities. If you go to the Arlington County website or if you search Arlington County Affordable Housing Study, it'll be the first thing that pops up, and there'll be plenty of opportunities for you to provide input, and we'd love to hear from you.
Well, I'm grateful this morning for all who have come out. I'm grateful for a great start. We've got a few months ahead of us, and as we work through those months, we're looking forward to getting to the point where we are putting this before the county board and approving this and making it part of the vision.